Okay, now let's talk about resistance. Let's talk about opposition. This is something that almost everybody, anybody in their right mind, doesn't like to think about because it's like that, what we have to push ourselves up against. It's that hard stuff. It's that difficult stuff to deal with. It's the abrasive stuff in life. But the reality is, every single one of us, every single day, every single minute, every single second of every single day, has a constant amount of swirling resistance around us. I like to visualize it in an actual never-ending spiral. It's dark out here. And in this spiral, inside of this spiral is all the captivity in your life. It's spiraling and it's pushing and it's pushing and it's pushing inward, inward, inward. And it will end up crushing this inside piece, which is you in that area of your life. So if it's in the ICD of your finances, for example, I am only this free. Where I live is at this exact level. So inside of this circle is my ability to act. It's my freedom. It's represented by light. And there's a whole bunch of symbolism as to why that's really powerful. But the captivity is represented by the darkness. So the most important piece here to remember is that it will never, ever, ever leave you alone. Resistance is never ending. It's never stopping. It is always around us. The first law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy, all things are in a constant state of degeneration. If you take that brand new Corvette and stick it out in the middle of a field, how long does it take before it becomes a pile of rust? 25 years, 50 years, 100 years, whatever it is, everything is in a constant state of degeneration. And we are the same exact way. If I don't choose to do anything when it comes to the physical area of my life, if I don't choose to get up and go get a drink of water, how long does it take me before I die? I die very, very quickly. 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, whatever it is, because my body needs water. And we have to have certain things in our lives just to actually keep moving forward. We have to be acting in certain ways if we want to push up against the resistance and actually go out there and make money, right? If we want to push up against the resistance and do something about this precious time that we have and grow relationships, then we have to spend time in nurturing those relationships, right? Well, what most people fail to realize on a daily basis is that the truism is opposition and resistance will never, ever leave you alone. In the very famous book, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, he starts off the book by saying this, and I think it's so poetic. Life is difficult. Every single one of you can relate to what I'm saying right now. I can relate. Life is difficult for all of us. Life is totally difficult. However, it's in the embracing, not just the acceptance of, but the actual embracing of the resistance that we can transcend it. It's through embracing adversity that we can transcend it. Think about the mentally healthiest people that you know. Bad things happen in their lives too. But what is it that allows them to actually see life through the lenses of optimism? It only happens if we have the mindset that we are going to embrace adversity, embrace opposition, embrace resistance. Out here inside of this resistance is all the things that keep us back from our freedom, that are putting pressure on us. Fear, doubt, temptation, all the things that try to keep us from actually expanding and progressing. But we can choose any given day, we can choose whether we are going to push out against the resistance or just sit back and do the easy thing. One of the most fascinating conversations I ever had was with an astrophysicist. He told me, I was explaining out the whole freedom cycle to him, and wanting to get his opinion on what I had come up with and what I had been discovering, bouncing all kinds of ideas off of him that I'd been discovering out there within natural law and stuff. And he told me, he said, what you have explained to me, he was captivated. I was like, here I am, just little old Ken Sullivan, and here he is, Mr. Astrophysicist, probably the smartest guy on the planet I've ever talked to, and he is spellbound by what I'm telling him. And he's like, this is exactly what's happening. He said, in the universe, we used to think that all things are made up of atoms. And what we've learned is that all things are not made up of atoms. We've learned that it's only about 4 to 5% of the universe that's made up of atoms. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Because I had just been studying. I mean, some guy won the Nobel Prize back in the 1960s for saying the most powerful thing you could ever say to the next generation or the next people who were going to inhabit the planet if our whole civilization was wiped off the planet would be something to the effect that it would be all things are made up of atoms. This would be the sentence that you would want to pass along to the next civilization. All things are made up of atoms, and as those atoms come closer together in proximity, they attract one another, but as they are compelled together, they repel one another. And he said, well, yeah, but we've learned in the last few decades that that's not true. It's not, all things are not made up of atoms. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? You know, all the light, all the air that we breathe, every single thing that we're made up of, everything that we know of that's made up of, everything that's measurable. He said, well, yeah, that's the confusing part, and it drives us physicists crazy because we've learned that approximately 74% of the universe is made up of what we call dark energy, and approximately 22% is made up of what we call dark matter. And I'm like, what's dark matter? What's dark energy? And he proceeded to tell me about how he didn't understand it, how nobody understands it, but they're just making all these guesses and how it relates to gravitational pull and all these different things. But what's happening out there, he said, look at the sun, for example. You take the sun, any spherical object, and apply equal pressure to all sides in the laboratory, and what happens is that the core will heat up. And as that core heats up, heat expands, and so it pushes out to the outside. He said, think about the sun. He said, isn't it amazing that we have a system in which we have so much perfect harmony that we can all live in an environment where we have the ability to like walk around with just the right amount of gravity. And he said, it's just miraculous to me. He said, as a matter of fact, it's the reason why I believe there's a God. He said, unlike a lot of my colleagues. But think about this. If we were to simply view every single day with the attitude of, I'm going to embrace the difficulties, think of how much more powerfully adapted and equipped you are now to overcome the challenges life brings in front of you. You're going to have a difficult week next week. You're going to have difficult things happen next month, next year. Life's not always going to be a bed of roses. It's in the embracing of the difficulties that we can transcend them.